During the early 90s, the fighting game genre underwent something of a renaissance. With the convenience of home video game consoles becoming more mainstream, the 16-bit era was a critical time period for tournament fighters. Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, Street Fighter, Primal Rage, all the big names were finding themselves downscaled for home use. Sure, the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis weren't quite as good as the arcade cabinets in terms of graphics and sound, but it was still a fantastic time for fans of fighting games. In addition to the big names, we also have several small-timers who threw their hats into the ring, some of which became cult classics, and some of which are better off forgotten. In Japan, there were also a handful of fighting games for the Super Famicom based on popular anime at the time, including Sailor Moon, Ranma 1/2, and of course, Gundam. This seemed like the perfect storm. Tournament fighters underwent a revolutionary period in the 90s, and Mobile Fighter G Gundam just aired in Japan, so making a fighting game based on G Gundam for the Super Famicom sounded like the perfect idea. Right? Come on, this has to be great. Just watch the demos here. We have all the main characters, all 5 members of the Shuffle Alliance, Rain and the Rising Gundam, Master Asia, Schwartz Bruder, and you can play as both the Shining and Burning— oh wait, this is Japanese exclusive, sorry, Shining and God Gundams. The graphics look great and right at home for the Super Nintendo, even if some of the portraits do look a little bit silly. I do love the alternate colors for the mechs though. Each of the stages is fitting for most of the characters, reflecting battlegrounds that they used in the show, or ones that are in line with the nation that they're from. The music is decent, not super memorable, but not terrible. But the most important thing, how's the gameplay? Well, this is where the game kind of falls apart. How do I describe it? This game is basically a Street Fighter clone with a G Gundam skin thrown over it, but the combo inputs are delayed beyond belief. The punch and kick buttons respond perfectly fine, as do the L and R buttons, which let your Gundam dash left or right. The movement's fine, but when you try to do a combo input, the controls are delayed at best and just plain unresponsive at worst. During the whole time I spent trying to record this to get footage, both console and emulator, I was only able to pull off a handful of actual combos, and most of these were only after mapping a specific button on my PC's controller to use down right and down left. If you're lucky, you may be able to pull off a desperation move, like Shining Finger Sword. If you remember the Fight Night Friday video that Rio and I did a couple years back, you'll remember we had some similar complaints about it then as well. Well, even if the controls are busted, let's see how far I can get in story mode. With a lot of grapple spamming, I can get all the way to the Devil Gundam, the final boss, and not gonna lie, this is the best design of the Devil Gundam that I've ever seen. Unfortunately, the grapple doesn't work on this guy. Not that it matters, since I get absolutely destroyed before I can even get close to him. Also, fun fact, if you lose so many times in a row while playing as Shining Gundam, Domon will come back in the God Gundam for the rest of the story mode. Unfortunately, I couldn't beat the Devil Gundam. The cool thing is that with a button combo, you can actually play as the Devil Gundam in PvP. Just hold down L, R, select start, and press A to choose it. But even with that, I can't say that this game is actually good. This game hurts me to talk about. I really wanted this game to be great. G Gundam's my favorite Gundam series, and the Super Nintendo is my favorite console, so this game seemed like the perfect way to represent it, but the controls are just too clunky and too stiff to play in a fun way. But fortunately, not all was lost for Gundam fans who owned a Super Famicom. Just as Gundam Wing was the anime series following G Gundam, it was also a follow-up on the Super Famicom. Gundam Wing Endless Duel. From the opening sequence, I was immediately impressed. The graphics do a great job of emulating Gundam Wing's animation styles and even recreate part of the show's opening as best they could with Super Famicom graphics. You get to play as all the main Gundams, including Wing and Wing Zero, and you also get to play as the Tallgeese and the Mercurius piloted by Noin and the Viete piloted by Lady Un. The animations are a lot smoother and more fluid, and everything just moves faster on the whole. The best way I can describe this game compared to G Gundam, it's a lot like Street Fighter II versus Street Fighter II Turbo. Same control setup, same basic combat style, but the movement is a lot faster, so even if you can't pull off the combos excellently, the basic attacks are still fun to combo with. Or spam. Yeah, definitely spam. It should go on record that I'm actually not that good at fighting games. I really enjoyed Endless Duel, even if I never could get off an ultimate attack. The game does have its own differences from G Gundam too. If you wait long enough, you'll eventually get a targeting cursor where you can spam gunfire with your punch buttons. This is how I won most of my fights with heavy arms. You do have limited ammo though, and it's represented by both an ammo counter and a rechargeable special gauge. Your kick buttons use melee attacks like beam sabers, and the controls for your special attacks are still a little bit stiff, but they work a lot more than they did during G Gundam. In addition to that, apparently the Tallgeese has a Glock? I will admit I haven't seen Gundam Wing in a good while, but I'm used to him packing that massive cannon, not a handgun. And the Sandrock apparently takes notes from Dorkly's version of Link by using his shield as a smashing board. I also think it's pretty cool that his stage is the desert full of Magwanox. You get to beat Catcher down in front of all of his friends. And his ultimate appears to be support fire from off-screen. Now that's camaraderie. In addition to story mode, this game also has a survival mode which is called Trial Mode. Yeah, I didn't get very far since my HP doesn't regenerate a lot in between fights. And can we just appreciate how awesome this music is? It feels like something straight out of the Mega Man X series, and I could listen to it for hours. But if you're going to check out either of these games, I stick with G Gundam just for curiosity's sake, but Endless Duel for a better gameplay experience. Both of these have translated ROMs so you can understand the story mode dialogue. Some of it is not really that well written. Shivity is kind of cringeworthy. Yeah, just skip the G Gundam game and play Endless Duel. And if you're wondering about all the footage from the fight with the Vaiate, it's because I kept getting destroyed by her. No matter what I tried, she just kept curb stomping me. I eventually had to set the game to easy mode just so I could beat her, but she was still really tough, and then Noin's Mercurius slapped me around a few times. But I stuck it out, and eventually I at least got to challenge the Gundam Epyon even if I couldn't beat him. Oh yeah, and like the Devil Gundam in the previous game, Epyon is only playable by inputting a button combo in Versus or Trial mode. Fair warning, the Devil Gundam code seems to crash the game in the English patched ROM, at least when I tried it. This may have been something of a rough start for Gundam Fighting Games, but believe me, the Gundam fight is just beginning. Join us next time when we take a look at something a little more advanced.